Apple just gets it. They just get it. Talk about mind-blowing, talk about wow, talk about seeing something and not being able to piece all the puzzles together. Yes, Apple just finished wrapping up their usual September event, and I gotta say, going into this event, I was kind of not excited for it. I felt like I knew almost everything going into this event. I felt like there was a ton of leaks. The design of the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro leaked out months in advance, and I felt like there was very few surprises, and even some of the last minute leaks I felt like were kind of disappointing when it was talking about the design of the iPhone 14 Pro. Maybe not using this eye-shaped cutout and instead using a more traditional pill-shaped cutout. And I went, okay, what's there to be excited about? We've seen that on Android phones before. You know, is this the innovation that Apple was going to bring to the phone after the notch? It seemed very unexciting. And boy, am I glad I was wrong, because Apple knocked it out of the park. They knew exactly what to do, and they have innovated in ways that Android phone manufacturers, even though they have been using similar similar cutouts that maybe they could have done something with, just didn't even attempt to do something like this. And yeah, the iPhone 14 Pro looks amazing. I want to focus most of the video on this phone in general because I think it's the biggest phone change we've had from Apple since the iPhone 10, and it just looks great. It looks stellar. So first of all, the design of this thing, it's not too different, right? If you're looking at the back of it, it looks like an iPhone 13 Pro. The color choice on this one changed. You know, the 13 Pro, it's Sierra Blue. This time they're doing a deep purple color. I don't know if the deep purple color is gonna look good. I'm looking at the photos online. Some of them look good. Some of them look okay. So I'm still not sure what color I'm ultimately gonna go with, but they still have the traditional, you know, space gray, silver, and gold color as well. So again, it's just a new color in the lineup, nothing really big there. But then during the presentation, you saw that, you know, pill-shaped camera cutout and you go, okay, the rumors were confirmed. And then all of a sudden, Apple goes ahead and just blows your mind. And they basically introduce, and this is a weird name, the Dynamic Island. I'm not crazy about that name. I think that's probably one of the worst names that they have ever used. But thankfully, they showed off some really cool things that this Dynamic Island does. And this Dynamic Island is basically taking what you would consider a weakness on the iPhone, this big pill-shaped cutout at the top, which is replacing the notch, and actually utilizes it in a way that is super clever and takes advantage of the fact that there's a big cutout there by making it part of the user interface. And there's a lot of examples that Apple showed off in their keynote of how this dynamic island works, but just to give you like a few examples, let's say like you have your AirPods connected. You can tap on the top bar and you can see your AirPods, you can see the current charge level for them. Let's say that you are playing a song. You can actually tap again on that top camera and it will expand into a view where you can actually see the album artwork, you can see music controls, and you can interact with this empty black space on the top of the phone, and then it has like these really nice animations. So if you're swiping things, it'll actually like swipe up into the dynamic island. I don't know, there's just something about this dynamic island. It adds a level of playfulness to the iPhone. Apple gets it. They nail it every single time, it feels like. And this is just taking an idea, a concept, and going with it, and just shooting past what people were expecting this phone to be. And it doesn't even seem that complicated. It's just software taking advantage of this permanent fixture, this user interface element on the iPhone. But they made it look so cool. So great job on that hole punch pill shape, whatever, that pill shape cutout. Great job, Apple. This is actually really cool and an ingenious way to make that cutout feel like it's part of the phone experience. And that might be like one of the coolest parts of the presentation, and I wanted to lead off with it, but I feel like Apple also gets a lot of other design decisions right with the iPhone 14 Pro, and that would be the always-on display. Now, I've talked about this before in videos about when Apple does an always-on display, they're gonna do it their way, and they're gonna do something that's more than just a black static screen with white text on it, or some colorful icons or whatever. What Apple did here is they took advantage of the fact that this new display technology for the LTPO panels can go all the way down to 1 Hertz. And this is very similar to the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch has an always-on display. You can see it right now. It's running at 1 Hertz. And all it really does is it just dims this, and it keeps the exact same screen that you had on before. It doesn't change what the screen was when it turns on, like it does on so many Android phones. So the idea for an always-on display on the iPhone 14 Pro is it's literally just your always-on lock screen. You have a wallpaper you like, that just dims. You have the new lock screen with the time, the fonts, the complications you put in there for the icons, the status icons, all that stuff. It all just dims. It just looks like your phone was left on. It doesn't revert to a different state. So I like that about this iPhone's always-on display. It doesn't feel like a disjointed or a disconnected experience. It just feels like you are going to use your normal iPhone display. It even has some of the cool stuff with iOS 16, where like, say like you have like your Starbucks order and you're going to pick it up, it'll leave that there. If you're taking the transit, you have directions, it'll tell you all the stops. So if you just quickly glance at your phone, you have all that useful information right there, always on. Again, this isn't like it hasn't been implemented before, but when Apple does it, they do it right. They did it right for this implementation of an always-on display on the iPhone's lock screen, and I give them credit for that. Now let's talk about the camera. I feel like this is another kind of groundbreaking thing for the iPhone. So the normal specs on it are, it's a 48 megapixel sensor, which is going to let in a lot of information. Now, Apple's done a lot of clever things here. Now, they've done what Android phones have already done, which is if you have a 48 megapixel sensor on a phone and you go to take a picture of something, used all that information, then basically stitched that down to a 12 megapixel photo. So if you just start taking photos with your iPhone, this new iPhone 14 Pro, they will get a lot of the information from that 48 megapixel sensor, but then bring it down to a 12 megapixel image. With the Pro RAW on the iPhone 14 Pro, they're actually gonna let you take full advantage of the 48 megapixel sensor. So if you are a pro, you wanna go in and enable that and understand that you're gonna be using a ton of data, you can actually utilize the full 48 megapixel readout of the iPhone's camera and get a ton of information. They showed some examples where they like punched in and like retained a bunch of detail, even with the wide angle camera, like zoomed in like 4 times with it and it still looked great. They showed like a big print, like they printed out like a huge image that would look probably pretty pixelated if they use like a 12 megapixel sensor, but on a 48 megapixel sensor, they're actually able to print that image out and not really lose or just actually retain the quality of that photo. So again, this camera system sounds good. They're doing some smart things too, where they're bringing back the 2x zoom in because again, it's a big 48 megapixel sensor, so they can just kind of like digitally zoom in using that sensor, but then give you the control on the 2x and let the phone take care of the rest, and then still give you the ultra wide camera and still give you the 3x telephoto lens. And now you basically almost have kind of like 4 lenses on this 14 Pro, even though there's only physically 3 lenses. It just sounds like a really nice camera system. The interesting thing is one of the leaks for this was that there was gonna be 8K video, and that didn't happen. The max this can shoot at is 4K, but what did happen, which is nice, is that the cinematic mode, which the 13 Pro had, that's gonna be 4K now. Previously it was only 1080, and you can actually use 24 frames per second. That's the frame rate that most movies are shot at, whereas last year they only let you do that in 30 frames per second. So that is a nice improvement to cinematic mode. I think I'll actually take that over the 8K video. But it looks like the camera system on this 14 Pro is going to be a major leap. It looks absolutely insane. I am very, very excited to actually test this in a review. There's just a lot of other cool features too. There's gonna be like car crash detection, like built into the phone. If you get into like a car accident, like you could just call like emergency services. Better improvements on the front facing camera as well. It's gonna be, it's gonna have a new 12 megapixel sensor, which is gonna let in more light with an f1.9 aperture, and has front autofocus too, which is a nice thing. 2000 nits of peak brightness for outdoor use. The screen's gonna get up to 2000 nits of brightness. That's insane. I feel like you could just like hold your iPhone up to someone and like blind them. And all the iPhones this year are even gonna have satellite connectivity. It looked a little rough, honestly. Like you actually have to like search for the satellite with your phone and like actually like line it up to get like a connection. But hey, if you don't have like a cellular tower around you, apparently it's gonna let you make calls or send messages. And that's gonna be great if you're actually in an emergency situation where you need to contact someone. So it's a cool feature. I don't think it'll have much utilization for most people. Hopefully you're not in a situation like that. But if you do need it, the fact that your iPhone can do it is really, potentially maybe a life-saving feature. And I like that. And the best part about it is no price increase on the 14 Pro, which is also rumored. So it's still $1,000, $1,099 for the Pro Max. And that's good to know because honestly, if you look at the regular 14, it starts at $800. The 14 Plus is $900. I feel like that's a hard sell for the 14 Plus. I thought the 14 Plus might have been the phone to get going into this, but if you could just pay $100 more and get a Pro, and then $200 more for the bigger Pro, with all these new features, that cool dynamic island feature, I don't know, it might be a rough year for the regular 14 models, especially because Apple kept the 13 in the lineup. If you watch my last video, I said, hey, maybe the 13 might start at $599. It does start at $599 for the mini, $699 for the regular size 13. And I gotta be honest, I'll wait for the reviews, but looking at those phones, it might be the time to pick up a 13 if you're not in the market for a Pro phone. But yeah, this is just my quick initial thoughts on the iPhone 14 Pro, why I think it looks like a great phone, why I think it's probably gonna be the phone to get this year. I know there was a lot of other stuff at the Apple event. New AirPods Pro, those look really good. I love my AirPods Pro. These have a lot of improvements to them, so I can't wait to check those out. New Apple Watch Series 8, not that exciting. It has like a new body temperature sensor, which actually might help with like cycle tracking for women. I mean, that's really great. That's a great health feature. But in terms of like other updates to it, not too much. Kind of feels like a slightly revamped Series 7. The new SE though does look like a great value. Same exact performance as the Series 8. Has the Series 4 design still, but $250 for an Apple Watch SE. That's a good price. And then the Apple Watch Ultra, this big hunkin' 49mm watch, titanium design. I think the design looks absolutely great. I love how big it is. The battery life on it sounds insane. 36 hours of regular battery life and then maybe up to 60 hours of battery life with a new low power mode. This thing looks absolutely bonkers. $800 too, which is less than the rumors, which were saying $1,000. I think that's gonna be my watch. I think it looks absolutely great. But yeah, I just wanted to focus this video mostly on the 14 Pro. I'm gonna have a more in-depth buyer's guide on the 14 and 14 Pro coming out later. And I'm going to be talking about all these products soon. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for more. It's gonna be more in-depth than this, have a lot more information dense than just my random thoughts from my head. So get subscribed. If you like this video, give me a like. And let me know in the comments below, do you agree with me that the iPhone 14 Pro turned out to be a way better phone than you were expecting? And are you excited for this new phone with a new way to interact with it with the dynamic island? Let me know in the comments below. It's gonna be an interesting conversation. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I gotta get to work on another video, so I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.